Part 5 of the 7-day mental diet mini course. 7-day mental diet, of course, is Emmett Fox's great method or technique, if you want to call it that, to change your life within 7 days, which is a very highfalutin claim, but it works. It does work. Again, if this is for some reason the first video of this series you've watched, I would suggest you watch it from the beginning. I will put the link to the playlist of the previous videos above. So Fox, we ended the last section, Fox talking about having the whole idea of this 7-day mental diet is to have 7 days of unbroken mental discipline in order to get the mind definitely bent in a new direction once and for all. I love that language, definitely bent in a new direction, because that's what this is like. This is, as I've mentioned a lot the last couple of videos, so much about dealing with our reactivity and how we have a tendency a lot of the time inadvertently to dwell on negativity. It's not that we can't have negative thoughts while we're doing this diet, but the whole point is we're not going to dwell on them. We're not going to be reactive to them and play into them. And Fox says this is the kind of thing that takes a lot of energy and effort to do. But if you do it for a short period of time, for 7 days, it will have a lasting effect because you will view your thinking and your reactivity in a totally new way. Sounds dramatic. In my experiences, it's often not as dramatic as this. It's just profound. Like it works. It does something. Once you do it, and I know a lot of people watching this video have already done it or are in the process of doing it for the first time because they're watching this series. Once you start doing it and you do the 7 days, you're going to see exactly what he's talking about here. Even though he's using some grandiose language, what he's getting at is very, very practical, which is why I love it. As viewers of this channel know, longtime viewers, I'm all about practicality when it comes to manifesting stuff. I don't care much about theory. I want practicality. I want advice that I can apply in my own life, that I can share with others, that will help you as the viewer. I mean, that's what this stuff is all about, in my opinion. I don't care about theory. Law of attraction, law of assumption, manifesting theory is not that interesting. At least to me. Results, getting results, especially feeling better, feeling less stressed. That's very interesting. This next part's important. Who knows? The way we're going, as slow as we're going on this mini course, it's not even going to be a mini course when all is said and done. Every part we're going over is important here. Fox writes, if you make a false start when you do this diet, or even if you go on well for 2 or 3 days of doing the diet, and then for any reason fall off of it, in other words, start playing into your negativity, start dwelling on your negativity, and you'll be aware of this. This will be clear to you. You won't be like, this won't come out of nowhere. You'll be able to catch yourself usually. But if you can't catch yourself and you start dwelling in negativity, what Fox says the thing to do is to drop the scheme altogether for several days and then to start again afresh. Now, I think this is an important point because what Fox is saying here is like if you fall off the diet, if you say, I'm going to do this for 7 days, and then something happens, as can certainly happen within the first day or within the first couple days or even on day 5, who knows, where you fall off the diet and you start dwelling on negative stuff, not just observing the negative thoughts and observing that there might be a lot of negativity there, a lot of inner resistance, a lot of like uncomfortable feelings. All that's okay if we're just observing it. That's what the point of this is, just to observe it, right? Not to even try to be positive about it. Usually we can't be positive or put a happy face on when we feel that way, and truly feel positive. All we have to do is observe this stuff, all this negativity that's coming up, and not react to it strongly like we often inadvertently do. But if we find ourselves unable to do that, and don't beat yourself up too much if this happens, because it happens. But if you start day 1 or 2 or 3, and it's like, oh, I just can't deal with this, and you start getting negative, you snap. Maybe you say something to yourself or say something to another person, and you're all of a sudden playing into your negativity. If that happens, the diet's done for the time being. It's done. And what Fox says is don't try to restart it a couple hours later or the next day. I've talked with several people who this happens. They fall off the diet, understandably, for whatever reason. And they're like, all right, well, I'm going to go right back on it tomorrow. Fox says, don't do this. Don't do that. Give yourself at least a couple days. I would say at least 2 days to just assess kind of and process a little bit, at least, what happened. The truth of the matter is, if you fall off the diet, you fell off the diet. You were unable to do it for 7 days, which is fine. That can happen. But don't start the next day and just say, I'm going to do it again. Wait at least a day or two. Really, like I'd say, at least 2 days. You'll be able to process it more and decide more clearly if you actually want to do the 7-day diet again so soon after having attempted it. Oftentimes, if you fail, it's better to take off, as I said, at least a few days, but maybe like try it again in a week or two or a month or two later. Don't do it right away. Chances are you give a valiant effort, and if you failed, I'm sure you still learned something from it, even if you only went for a couple days. Okay, so I think that's an important undervalued point. I've never heard anybody really talk about that before. And, you know, likewise, Fox says, and this is super important, like there's no jumping on and off this diet. This isn't like, oh, I've done it for 2 days. Oh, I fell off. All right, no problem. I'll start again, you know, tomorrow. It doesn't work like that. He gives this, you know, this story about Rip Van Winkle saying, oh, you know, I'm not going to have a drink, you know, and then a neighbor offers him a drink and he says, well, I won't count this one. And Fox says, you can't do that on the mental diet. You know, when you're dwelling on negativity and being reactive and negative, you know, that means you're off the diet. Be honest with yourself. Recognize you failed the diet. It's okay. And you can try it again later. But you don't just restart a couple hours later or the next day. It doesn't work like that. He says, you must positively count every lapse. And whether you do or not, nature will. Where there is a lapse, you must go off the diet altogether and then start again. Now, in order, if possible, to forestall difficulties, I will consider them in a little detail. All right, let's get into a little more details here. This is hugely important what he's about to talk about. First of all, what do I mean by negative thinking? Well, a negative thought is any thought of failure, disappointment, or trouble, any thought of criticism, or spite, or jealousy, or condemnation of others, or self-condemnation, any thought of sickness or accident, or in short, any kind of limitation or pessimistic thinking. Any thought that is not positive and constructive in character, whether it concerns you yourself or anyone else, is a negative thought. Do not bother too much about the question of classification, however. In practice, you will never have any trouble in knowing whether a given thought is positive or negative. Even if your brain tries to deceive you, your heart will whisper the truth. Like I mentioned, you know when you're thinking negatively. You know. You know, it's not difficult to know that. That's what you're going to realize when you do this diet. So you're going to realize when you're thinking negative thoughts. And I think what Fox says is pretty clear. Negative thought is what you would think it is. You know, it's lackful thinking. And we think lackfully all the time. Now, what has to be explained, and Fox is about to explain it, is that you're going to have lackful thinking probably all day long during this diet. At least some days or a lot of the days. That's okay. It's the playing into it that is the problem. That is what the diet entails. It's not playing into this lackful thinking. So Fox writes, second, you must be quite clear that what this scheme calls for is that you shall not entertain or dwell upon negative things. Note this carefully. It is not the thoughts that come to you that matter, but only such of them as you choose to entertain and dwell upon. It does not matter what thoughts may come to you, provided you do not entertain them. It is the entertaining or dwelling upon them that matters. Of course, many negative thoughts will come to you all day long. Some of them will just drift into your mind of their own accord. Some of them will come out of the race mind. Other negative thoughts will be given to you by other people, either in conversation or by their conduct. You'll hear disagreeable news, perhaps, by letter, telephone. You'll see crimes and disasters announced in the news. These things, however, do not matter as long as you do not entertain them. In fact, it is these very things that provide the discipline that is going to transform you during this epoch-making week. The thing to do is directly the negative thought presents itself to you, turn it out. Don't play into it. Do not react towards it. Turn away from the newspaper. Turn out the thought of the unkind letter, the stupid remark, or whatnot. When the negative thought floats into your mind, immediately turn it out and think of something else. Best of all, think of God as explained in the Golden Key. That last part, the Golden Key part, we'll talk about later, probably next video. Hopefully that was clear. You can read that last part again. The preceding videos have talked about this dwelling a lot. Something I want to point out. He says, when the negative thought floats into your mind, immediately turn it out and think of something else. You don't have to try to think of something else, okay? It's natural to think. You have to think. You're conscious. You're thinking whether you like it or not. All you have to do is not dwell on it. This is why I mentioned letting go yesterday. You can become like a neutral observer towards your thoughts over this week. So you're going to notice you have a negative thought. You notice right away. You, like Fox says, there's going to be no doubt in practice knowing whether a given thought is positive or negative. It's like, oh, this is a negative thought. You're aware of that. You don't have to be like, I have to think a positive thought. You know, think of it. It's just like, just be aware of that. See it's there and be neutral about it. If you're neutral about it and just observe it, there's a level of peace there. That's enough. That's not dwelling in the negativity. That's being aware of the negative thought and not dwelling in it. And you can notice how you feel, you know, the feelings that are going through your body as these negative thoughts come. And you can just be at peace with however you feel and be at peace with these thoughts. If you can think of a positive thought instead, if you can turn it out and think of something else that's better, great. But you don't have to think of anything better. Better, frankly, really better, is just, instead of playing into the negative thought, entertaining the negative thought and saying, oh, but yeah, this is wrong, this person's right, this is bad, I don't feel good, blah, 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 whatever it may be. Instead of doing that, it's just being, here's this negative thought. I'm thinking this negative thought right now. I'm thinking this negative thought right now. I'm thinking this negative thought right now. My body feels very tight. Just doing that, just observing that, observing the negative thoughts coming one after another, perhaps. It's going to happen a lot, probably. Negative thought, negative thought, negative thought. Uncomfortable feelings associated with that. Very uncomfortable feelings perhaps in your stomach or chest or throat or wherever in your body. Observing that. That's much better than playing into it and being like, oh, what's wrong with me? This person's so bad, or I'm so bad, or oh, I feel so terrible. I don't want to feel this way. Why do I feel so crappy? There's something wrong with me. Being more neutral towards those quote unquote uncomfortable feelings and these uncomfortable thoughts is enough. That's not dwelling. That's observing and not dwelling or entertaining. Huge, huge difference. All right, that's enough for today. If you want coaching or more in-depth help about this stuff, I'm here to help. You can email me at info@radicalcounselor.com or go to my website, radicalcounselor.com. Next part of this mini course, in all likelihood, we're going to go over the Golden Key of Emmett Fox, which is really one of the greatest LOA techniques that I know of, and is worth exploring in the next video, I think. All right, until next time, enjoy.